My dad used to say this all the time to me. Tell yourself the truth. Whatever you do not lie to yourself. Ever. You must tell yourself the truth. Never lie to yourself. And I never forgot that. And now I can see when a person has decided I'm not going to tell myself the truth or I'm okay with the lie. Because you can watch a person experience cognitive dissonance as they start to learn more truth, even about themselves. And so I think being open to reflective questions and being open to the answers of those questions critical. And it was that process that helped me go from who I was then to who I am today. And I don't say that I'm a completely different person, but I am a better version of myself today. And my children would say that's in yeah, dad's a better version.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Up Next. Today, I talk with a new friend with a book that he's writing that caught my attention, Dr. James Borishade. Did I get this right?
You did. Well done.
Yeah. Hey, I'm here on the south side of Chicago. My house is not too far from Progressive Baptist Church, from White Sox Park. I've grown up in the south side of Chicago all my life. James, where are you at today?
I am located on the west side of Chicago today, but I'm a born and raised South Sider. Born and raised
Where
South
is
Sider.
outside?
I grew up in the Jeffrey Manor, right off of right by Trumbull Park. It's a split between Jeffrey Manor and South Deering, so 95th and Jeffrey, all the way through close to the Stony Island and things like that. And so yeah, I grew up pretty far south and had an interesting upbringing with two Nigerian parents.
Yeah. And for you, a lot of times, as we do well into your history, where did you go for high school and college? All of those things were all in Chicago?
Yes, I started my first year of high school at St. Leo. Shout out to St. Leo. They've got a great principal now, Shaka Rawls, who he was a year older than me, but we were in a lot of the same classes together going to Leo. And then I moved over to Morgan Park High School. I
Yeah.
graduated from Morgan Park High School and then did my college at Northern Illinois University. So I stayed pretty close to home.
Yeah.
You know, didn't want to get too far away.
Yeah, and James, a lot of times my parents immigrated here in 72. I was born in 77. We always lived in the Chinatown and in the Bridgeport, McKinley Park area. Then from that point, I went to Whitney Young, and then I went over to Washington University in St. Louis thinking I was going to be a chemistry major, ended up in the business school over there.
See, I thought I was going to be in the music business. I had a record deal when I was in like 15, 16 years old. But my parents, being Nigerian parents, the only thing they cared about was go get an education. You're going to be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. And so they didn't want to
Yeah.
hear anything about music.
Yeah, and separate note, a lot of times that's what my parents said. It's funny, back in the day, and what year were you born, James, if you don't mind me
I was
asking?
born in 76.
Oh, okay. So we're about the same age. Back then, it was doctor, lawyer, engineer. The pharmacist was so highly respected. Now it's entrepreneur, AI, technology, all of those things. Doctor, you want to really work that hard with all these medical bills? Why don't you just be an entrepreneur? All of those things. But man, we're very similar in each other in terms of how we were brought up.
Absolutely. You are correct. That is the encouragement. AI, entrepreneur. Well, for me, those are the two big ones. AI and entrepreneur. I've got a son who's an entrepreneur. Doing really well. He's on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, brand ambassador. Got another
Wonderful.
son who's into AI, who does coding. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's the wave of the future now.
Yeah. And for you, a lot of times, talk to me about your history. Like Northern University, what did you think you were going to do and major in? And how did you get up to where you are right now?
That's an interesting story. So when I got to NIU, I really thought I was going to play sports or I was going to continue to do music. But as time went on, I found this professor, Dr. Charles Capel, who really got me interested in critical thinking and studying sociology. And it was by
Mm.
happenstance because I was a terrible student in his class the first time. And so it was sociology 376. It was one semester. You took it one semester, you passed it, you got out of it, and you can move on with your life. And I was a jerk. And the first day of class, I walked in. He said, "If you study hard, if you do well, if you do all the homework, you're going to study about 2 hours a day. You might get a C."
Mhm.
A C, and I just got up and walked out of class and dropped it. But then I found out for the major that I was in, you had to take that class. I didn't know that when I dropped it. And so the next semester, I went back to take it, and it was so difficult. They broke it into two classes. So it went from 376 to 377 A and B. So you had to take it both semesters. And
Mhm.
so I went back the next year, and he remembers that I walked out of his class. And so he gave the same speech, and I thought, okay, I'm going to sit in the back of the room and just listen. But I found the disciplines that he was teaching. I found the instruction that he was giving fascinating because it was not just teaching you to get to an answer. It was teaching you the process of thinking through all of the methodology and all of the steps to come up with a good answer. And so that fascinated me. And then he offered me a grad assistantship, and I just ended up loving the class. And so I was like, wow, wow. So I just switched my major to sociology. I didn't take the grad assistantship, but I switched my major to sociology and
Yeah.
started following his career and following some of his teachings. So Dr. Charles Capel from Northern Illinois.
Wow. So, okay, for him, how did he change your opinion? Did you walk in and says, "I remember you," and it took a while to? What made him decide to offer you this grad role?
So he looked at me and he just said, "Huh," and just kept teaching. So I sat in the back of the room. What changed our time together was midterms. He had been saying, "I do not give Mickey Mouse exams. I don't give Mickey Mouse exams." So the midterm, I walk in, it's 13 pages. And so I said, "You gotta be kidding." I hadn't even sat down yet. He handed me this packet. I said, "You gotta be kidding." And so he says to me, "You can leave." Now, at this point, and I'm doing well in the class, and it is hard to get above a C in his class. At
Mhm.
that point, I was averaging an A. He said, "You can leave." And I said, "I'm not leaving." He said, "You can leave." And I said, "I am not leaving. I have paid for this class." So he says, "Step outside." So we walk outside the door. He says, "I don't get you." "What do you mean?" He says, "By the way you talk, by the way you're interacting, people would think you're failing this class, but you are not failing this class." He said, "Do you know how hard it is to be averaging an A in my class right now? And you are averaging an A. Why don't you tell people that what he's saying is not impossible because I'm doing it? Why don't you tell people that it's possible to do? Why don't you change the way you're interacting with the class because you have influence?" So I said, you might be right. So I sat down and I did the finals. And I remember I was midway through my midterm, and this young lady got up and she quit. She was like, this is too hard. I said, "No, no, no, it's not. You can just answer the questions you know, skip the ones you don't." Because none of his questions were multiple choice. They were all essay.
Mhm.
So just answer the ones you know, skip the ones you don't, and I promise you'll do fine. And so she stayed in the class, and he looked at me and he said, "See?" And then from then on, we had a rapport. I would go see him in his office hours because he was somebody who didn't just let me get away with being a knucklehead. He sort of challenged me in a way that I hadn't really been challenged by many of my professors. And
Yeah, yeah,
so,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that sort of reshaped the way I saw education at that time.
Yeah. I love the story, and I love the very fact that you remember in such vivid details. James, don't you feel like sometimes, as I hear you talk, God allows certain memories to stay with us? They were a
Same.
turning point. They were impact. They were a moment in their life that really, really made a difference in their life. How did that experience influence your leadership right now and what you're doing as an author and as a CEO? All of those things.
That experience not only influenced what I'm doing at Circle Urban Ministries or as an author, it influenced me as a human being and as a parent because it
Mhm.
made me know that I wasn't crazy. I always wanted to understand the thought process behind a decision as opposed to just the decision itself. And so when I would do that growing up, people would think, "Oh, he's just being extra," or he's doing too much. But Dr. Charles Capel, like, that was not only was it normal, it was expected. He didn't care if you got to the
Mhm.
right answer. He really cared about how you were thinking about the steps to get to the right answer. And so that is what I started when I was having children. I said that is what I want my children to understand. I want them to know how to think because if you can teach a person how to think, You can predict their success or failure if you know exactly how to. So that's what we did with our children. Start teaching them. Here's how to think. And so we had a saying in our home: don't think outside of the box. Think as though there is no box. And
Yeah.
so that is how we lead here at Circle Urban Ministries as well.
Mhm.
And we have a saying on our leadership team: if I can follow your train of thought, I can support you. But if I can't follow your train of thought, we're going to pause and I'm going to ask a series of questions. And I expect you to do the same with me. If you cannot follow my train of thought, ask questions, and then we'll determine, okay, how did he get here? So you'll hear us often say words like, help me understand, or, I don't see it that way, but help me understand how you see it that way, or why that's important.
James, if I could recommend you for a second book and give you advice in your life, that should be your second book. I know we're going to talk about connecting across
Hmm.
differences, but if there's anything within all of our cities across Resource Global, we're now about 13 different global cities. That's the one thing I tell them. Do not just sit there and listen to me, especially when I walk into Asia. They look at me, oh, you're the elder Asian, you're from America, all of those things. Just tell us what to do. No, 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 no. You don't need me to tell you what to do. What is it when you look upon your cities, when you look upon your life? What is it that you need to do? You got to look. Life is not black or white. Life is actually gray, and you're half thinking through a gospel grid to look at your options, say, what's best? What will God do? All of those things to make the best decision. And sometimes you're wrong, but it's the thought process behind everything.
Absolutely. You know what I mean? I find it fascinating how common it is for people to want you to tell them what to do,
Yes,
as opposed
yes,
to helping them think through
yeah,
the
yeah.
process. That is fascinating. That is fascinating. We don't, we don't, I shouldn't say we don't allow it, but that there's a different expectation here at Circle and in my home. Like to tell us what to do, we, we, you cannot have that sort of mentality and last long around here because we won't tell you what to do there. You need to be accountable for your own situation, for your own healing, for your own upbringing. Even in a ministry where we are called to help people, you must participate in your help.
Yeah. And even if you make mistakes, it's okay.
It's okay.
Think through it. Why did you make the mistake? Learn from that mistake. We've worked with individuals in our work or whatever. Is the ones that frustrate me the most is once they do something, they just sit there, and you got to tell them to do something again. Then they sit there. I said, no, no, no. Think through your role. What's the next step? What's the next step? Think through it. Again, even if you make a mistake, I just want to know you thought through some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't tell how many people we sort of help see that it's okay to not only make a mistake, it's okay to appear that you fail. Fail forward though. Fail forward. I coached my young son's basketball team when he was growing up, and I'll never forget he made a critical error in the middle of a game, and his whole countenance changed. And so during the time where it's not really halftime, but it's our version of halftime at that younger age. What I explained to him is, listen, you're gonna make 5 to 10 mistakes in a game. Just budget. And if you can come in under 10 mistakes, you've done well. There are going to be times where you're supposed to guard a man. You might miss that. You might think, okay, let me go take a shot when you should have passed. That is fine. But I notice he takes that, now he's 22, he takes that same mentality with his entire life, say, hey, I'm going to make 5 to 10 mistakes a day. And if I can stay under that, I'm fine. But what it did is it gives him permission to fail and fail forward. That is okay. And what we teach people is if you play a sport or if you're let's just use a sport analogy. If you're playing a sport, you practice is just organized failure.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
So we don't have enough organized failure times in our lives. And so we see a group of people that are just completely afraid of making mistakes and afraid to fail, and they're paralyzed in movement.
Yeah, love it, love it. And so for you, a lot of times, as we talk about Circle Urban Ministries, it is a historical organization. The days of Glenn K. Ryan and even this whole CCDA back in the days, Dr. John Perkins, Wayne Gordon, all of those things. How did you get into this space? How did you get to be where you are right now?
It was a calling. I started right before I came to Circle Urban Ministries. I was actually running the zip line industry. Yeah, the industry where you're on a
Mhm.
platform. Yeah, that started with the challenge course industry, and it grew into the zipline industry. And at that point, I thought I really want to be back in ministry. I want to be doing work that I feel called to do, that I can get up every day and do this. And not too long after, I got an email from a headhunter who said, "Hey, a few years ago, we mentioned to you this ministry. Well, they're looking for a new CEO, and we'd like to put your name up, even though they're down to their last two candidates. But we don't think they like the last two candidates. So let's put your name up and see where it goes." So I briefly responded, "Sure, go ahead." A week later, she emails me back and she says, "Hey, they want to interview you." And so I thought, man, let's go see what it's about. I came to the campus. It was a glowing campus, and you could just feel the Lord here and the presence of the Lord within the ministry. And I thought, yeah, this is home. This is home. And so the funny thing is, what people I had never got to meet Dr. K. right before he passed away, but a lot
Mm.
of people have said you guys share the exact same vision. I talked to his wife Lonnie K. Ryan periodically, and she says, "Yeah, that's something Glenn wanted to see happen." I'm like, wow. And so I feel like I get downloads from the Spirit of the Lord that really say, "Okay, here's the next step and what we were trying to accomplish on this corner on in this campus." So it's been a blessing to be here.
For those who are not familiar, what does the ministry do?
So Circle Urban Ministries is located on the west side of Chicago in Austin, and we are really the kind of organization that comes into a community, works with our neighbors side by side, assessing the assets in the community, determining how those we can help refurbish those assets if they are distressed. So we'll purchase properties, rehab them, refurbish them, and then rent them out to other like-minded organizations who want to see the community flourish and the community grow. And then we take the resources from that income and then we reinvest it into the community. And then we've started to move into housing as well. And so each year, what Circle Urban Ministries does, each decade, what Circle Urban Ministries does is we address a systemic problem on the west side of Chicago. And so back in the when we started in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, we were addressing housing, we were addressing community wealth. Then in the 80s to 90s, we started addressing the healthcare system out here. We started addressing education in the 90s. In the early 2000s, we were addressing food scarcity. Now, 2020 to 2030, we're back to addressing housing and food scarcity. In the Austin community, it's a major food desert. And the worst part about it is Austin has more people. It's the largest neighborhood in Illinois with now 96,000 people. It used to have 120.
Wow.
96,000 people, one major grocery store. And that grocery store, 40 acres really just opened up about a year or two ago. One
Wow.
major grocery store. And so that is something that we've been working to address on our campus here. There's a school called Catalyst Circle Rock. We have a church called Rock Church, which was founded by Dr. Raleigh Washington and is now
Wow.
led by now led by Robert Louis Stevenson, who is the senior pastor. We had a healthcare facility here, and now we have Thresholds, which does healthcare, behavioral health. We have a woman and children's recovery home on the campus. We just opened a program called Seed to Success, where we are growing fresh produce right here on the campus and then distributing it to our neighbors. And so those are all of the things that we are doing now, but we're now looking to what's next with the rise of AI, with the way that generational wealth and wealth has changed. How do we educate our communities so that they are where they are ahead of the game and not behind the game? My business coaches tell me play where the puck is going, not where the puck is for my hockey enthusiasts.
Yeah, James, you remind me of a friend from San Francisco. He had a startup Korean guy, older guy, who was just an elder at his Korean church. And then from that point on, started volunteering with his son's Christian high school. And then from that point on, through that, they created a thing in NASA, life science experiment that he started working with different public school systems. Then from that point on, they actually made something that was able to map the ocean. They won that competition as well too. Now he's moved over to Malaysia because the Malaysian government has hired him to work with some of the folks that can't afford colleges on network security, which they create a business. And so a lot of times I understand coffee shops, t-shirt companies, and all that stuff, but it's creating something like AI, tech, or something that allows you to do all of those things.
That allows you to do it. The AI space right now is so fascinating and so phenomenal that we're considering creating a consulting company within what we do here at Circle Urban Ministries to help other organizations, nonprofit, kingdom-driven organizations, adopt AI into their workflow. We built we I don't know if people are familiar with Iron Man from the Marvel
Yeah,
community, but we built
yeah.
Jarvis here that helps me go through my emails, that helps me reach out to people when necessary. And the other thing we're now building is a full AI social media team. And so the what you're able to build and how fast you can deploy it, it's a fascinating time to be
Yeah. And then the key thing is then for you a lot of times to build some of the ethics training behind AI, because if you're not careful with it, it could go out of control. So as a Christ follower, how do you embrace this new technology? But then what are the boundaries in which you work with to really be able to continue to honor the Lord in everything that you do?
Absolutely. I think for us, we build the boundaries and the guardrails into it as we're building it. But what we're telling people who are building it, you really need it. It really becomes, or it really determines who it's coming from that is building this thing. Because while you can use AI unethically, if I gave a person who was unethical a lot of money, they would use their money unethically. But if I gave a person who is ethical a lot of money, they would use it ethically. And so it really starts to expand who the person is at their core. And so we try to address that in the very beginning. And there are people we won't work with if we feel like, yeah, this is a bad fit. This
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
bad fit.
Wonderful. Hey, switching gears, I want to talk a little bit about your book. How did this book, Connecting Across Differences, I saw that come through IVP. How did that book come about?
It came through pain. It came through pain. I tell people your misery may very well be the maternity ward for your ministry. And so in 2014, my children's mother and I decided to split. And I'll never forget getting the papers that said irreconcilable differences on. And I knew we were struggling, but I didn't know it had gotten to that point. And so it forced me to start looking inward. It forced me to really start to study everything I could. And that's the sociologist in me, study everything I could about relationships, about differences. And I started to realize, man, we were created different on purpose by God. I just didn't have the tools that I needed in order to understand those differences. Because the one thing that my children's mother used to say to me is, you don't hear me or you don't see me. And I didn't know what that meant. But after studying, I realized, oh, okay, I wonder how many more of us don't understand someone who is different from us and don't understand how to lean into that versus away from that. And so I just started studying as much as I can, so much so that I got a I became a certified life coach because I was consuming so much information. And then one day, a friend, Nancy, who volunteers here at Circle Urban Ministries, said, "You talk about this a lot. You should write a book." I was
Hmm.
like, eh. She said, "No, you should write a book. I have a friend who's a publisher at Tyndale House who I think they would want to read this book. They'd be
Yeah.
interested in it. You should write the book." She said, "I'm going to call her." And so she did. And the woman said, I'm very interested in this, but you need a literary agent. And I thought, I don't know, a literary agent. And she's, who do you recommend? And so she recommended Dan Barlow. That was the first person's name that came out of her mouth. Dan Barlow. And I said, okay, let me call him. I called him up. I told him about the book. And he says, oh, yeah, we're interested in that. And then he helped me walk through it. And when InterVarsity Press came back and said, we want to publish the book, They said, "Hey, we believe the principles that you're talking about apply more to more than just marriage. They apply to the workplace, they apply at
Yeah,
home, they apply
yeah,
in a lot of different disciplines.
yeah.
Would you mind talking about this in different disciplines? Because this seems like now your life's principle. Like it is." And so we workshopped some titles and we came up with connecting across differences and some language in the book. And it's been a blessing. But it was a painful journey to get there. I remember the first two chapters took me 6 months to write because I did not want to relive the pain that got me into that space in the first place.
Yeah, yeah. And the one thing I noticed even about the book is it applied to me in my role with all the different global cities. When I go into Nairobi, how do I understand? How do I communicate with my friends over in Nairobi? But yeah, it's very different when I go to Jakarta and work with those guys. Even more different when I go to Johannesburg and do the same thing. All of us are Christ followers, but the cultural, the differences, all of those things, understanding their story, all of that, being a student of what they're doing, listening, all of those things are so key.
Absolutely. I think you hit on something that's so critical. Understanding the story about someone. In order to do that, you actually have to care, as opposed to wanting to be heard. To listen to others, understand their story, understand the process that got them to the way that they think, or the way that they communicate, or the way that they
Yeah,
operate is so helpful in understanding. I hear people say it helps me give them grace, but to me, it's not about giving them grace because, again, that puts me in the power seat to give them grace. It helps me understand them, period. And once I understand them, we can begin to move and we can begin to work together. Because most people want to be seen, most people want to be heard, and most people want to be understood. But
yeah,
we, in our fast-paced society in the United States, we go through life rarely hearing people, seeing people, or understanding. We
yeah, yeah, yeah.
do a lot of tolerating of them.
Like even you and I, we both live on the south side. You went to Morgan Park, then you went to Northern. I grew up in Chinatown, all of those things. My parents, we came from immigrant families. My parents were wealthy over in Asia, but when they came in, when communism took over everything, they lost all their status. My dad had to work as a cook. My mom had to work as a teacher aide, but she was a teacher in Hong Kong, but she could never be a teacher because English wasn't good. And so they will always education becoming the thing that they will emphasize on. And so as Asians, hey, look, don't care about friendship, don't care about anything, just work hard, study hard, because education will open those doors for you. And don't even care, just keep working hard. And that for many of us as Asians create a hard work ethic into it. But my parents knew that in order to do that, that was the key for that. But alongside with that, boy, were they hard on us. You couldn't show any weakness. You had to get straight A's. My parents never said, I love you at all. You knew they loved you because of how hard they worked. And so all those dynamics affects not only us as Asians, but many of those guys who came from immigrant families.
That sounds like our parents must have known each other. Because I promise you, I have almost the identical story. I
Mm-hmm.
remember bringing home four A's and one B.
Hmm.
One B. The only thing we discussed was that B on my report card. And I didn't realize it at the time because that was just normal, but that has an impact on you as you become an adult because it makes you want to lock in, it makes you want to work hard, it makes you want to accomplish. But that can take its toll on marriages or relationships or how you raise children if you're laser focused on accomplishing. And so some of that I had to work out in therapy. Like, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm driven, but I need to. There has to be some balance. I did not know balance earlier. It'd be 4 o'clock in the morning. I am still working because there's a goal. I must accomplish this goal. Period.
Yeah. 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 And now a lot of times, even as I hear you talk, like one of the things I struggled because my parents, they were very sacrificial. They worked hard, but I have to be careful. Even as a father, I'm not. I keep saying, I'm not going to do that to my girls. I have two girls, 7 and 11. But without me knowing it, I'm naturally hard on them. I think I'm easy on them, but I'm actually hard on them because that's how I was raised. But then when I'm not working, James, I feel guilty. Then I have to ask myself the hard questions. Why am I feeling guilty when I'm not working? What is it that's driving me? And so similar to what you were talking about, I got to work and look at my inner heart, but also know how I'm communicating, how I'm portraying myself as well too.
Absolutely. And how people are receiving your communication verbally and non-verbally. I'll give you an example. When I first started here at Circle Urban Ministries, I used to wear three-piece suits
Hmm. Hmm.
every day. And then one day, I'll never forget, one day I was getting up, I was getting dressed. I'm like, I do not feel like putting on a suit. And it forced me to start thinking, why do I wear suits every day? Where did that come from? And I realized, oh man, my father growing up wore a suit every blessed day to work. And to me, I internalized that as that is what success looks like.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so if
yeah,
you're
yeah.
not dressed in a three-piece suit, you're tied perfectly tied and you got the cuff links and the pocket square just perfectly there, then you're not actually successful. And so I had to, that day, I remember I came into work in a jogging suit and everybody looked,
Are you quitting?
something's wrong with
What's going
James.
on here?
Yeah, what's going on? And then finally I just told him, I said, I don't think I'm going to be wearing suits anymore. And the air let out of the room like, finally, we can relax. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, oh my gosh, it was so stuffy. We just felt like we couldn't say anything, do anything because the boss is in a suit. Like, really? But
Yeah,
I did
yeah, yeah,
not know that that's how they were receiving me.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
had
yeah.
no idea that that's how they were receiving it. And that I didn't know that was the message I was putting.
But the key thing, and I hope everyone hears this, you've had to ask yourself hard questions. You have to be okay with reflect upon some of those things. James, I went to Moody Seminary. All right. I love Moody. I worked there and all that stuff. But I had this wonderful professor, Julius Wanloy Singh. He was this professor who had an Asian name, but he looked African and he spoke eight languages, but he's really from Curacao. And he
Hmm.
was wonderful. And he says to me, Tommy, can I say something to you? It's my last year of grad school at a seminary. He says, you're very good at doing. You're very good at just getting things done. You're highly motivated. I am concerned. You don't know how to
Mm,
reflect. You do not know how to reflect and see and ask yourself the hard questions. If you do not learn how to reflect, you will truly never understand what God is trying to do in your life. As you look at your past, what is God saying to you? I have never forgotten that. To this
mm.
day, I have never forgotten that. And he helped me force myself to look deep into my heart and ask myself what's driving me every day.
That is deep. That is deep. The reflective questions are important. And people, not only do we need to learn the reflective questions, but we've got to be okay with the answers. My dad used to say this, and I'll leave you with this one thing. My dad used to say this all the time to me. Tell yourself the truth. Whatever you do, do not lie to yourself. Ever. You must tell yourself the truth. Never lie to yourself. And I never forgot that. And now I can see when a person has decided I'm not going to tell myself the truth, or I'm okay with a lie, because it's there. You can watch a person experience cognitive dissonance as they start to learn more truth, even about themselves. And so I think being open to reflective questions and being open to the answers of those questions critical. And it was that process that helped me go from who I was then to who I am today. And I don't say that I'm a completely different person, but I am a better version of myself
Yeah,
today.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
my
yeah.
and my children would say that same. Yeah, dad's a
My
better version
friend,
of himself today.
I know we don't know each other. I have a feeling through this conversation, we'll become very good. I love this conversation. I love your spirit. I love your heart. I'm
Mm.
so happy you're in Chicago because I'm feeling that I'm going to call you and I would love for you to do more teaching, more speaking, all of those. This will not be the last time we ever talk.
It's my honor. I would love for us to connect. Let's go to lunch. Let's learn more about each other's story. I'd love to come in and learn more about what you all are doing there, and also share a little bit more about what's going on here at Circle Urban Ministries. We are definitely kindred spirits. Definitely.
Yeah. Hey, last thing. I mean, do you still do very much work in? I know home was Nigeria. Do you go back and do very much work in Nigeria?
I have not yet. I have not done much work in Nigeria at all. I have not even visited Nigeria, and I know I'm embarrassed to say that,
Oh,
but I
really?
have not visited Nigeria yet. But I will go.
Yeah.
But I will go.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And where can people find more information about you? Circle
So
Urban,
they
your
can, you can
website.
find me at circleurban.org. That is circleurban.org or borishade.com. BORISHADE.com.
Wonderful. We'll talk soon.